Hey everyone! Today I'm going to be showing you how to crochet barbell bun bun. With a basket full of colorful eggs and a heart full of springtime spirit, this bunny is a master at the Easter egg exercise routine. So barbell bunny can be made in sport, DK, or plush weight yarn by adjusting your hook size. Today I'm going to be crocheting with worsted weight yarn and a 4mm crochet hook. If you haven't already, be sure to snag the matching greeting card to make an adorable and one-of-a-kind gift that your friends and family will love. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. And we're going to begin with the body and the head and using this white colored yarn. So the first thing that we need to do is form a magic ring. So let's review how to form a magic ring. Okay, so let's review how to tie a magic loop. So to start, we're going to get about 5 inches of our tail of our working yarn. And then we need to form a bit of a finger guns here with our left hand. And then we're going to lay that tail so that the tail part of it is down over the bottom digit of our left hand. And then we're going to take our thumb and pinch that tail so it's on securely to our index and our middle finger. Then we're going to take the working yarn, and that's the yarn that's attached to the ball of yarn, and we're going to wrap it around the back side of those 2 fingers really close to the top digit. So I'm just wrapping around the back, and then I'm going to continue by pulling it behind my thumb. So I just made a big loop around my fingers. Then we're going to wrap a second time, but this time we're going to go around the lower digit on the back side of our left hand. And then one last time we're going to push that working yarn behind our thumb on our left hand. Then when we've done that, we can take our crochet hook and we're going to flip our left hand over so we can see those 2 loops that we formed. And then taking our crochet hook underneath that top loop, we're going to use the hook to grab that bottom loop and pull it underneath the top loop. Then when we've done that, we're going to flip our hands back over away from our body. And then bring our hook and our left hand together. So you can see my fingers on my right hand are touching the back side of the hand with the loops on it. Then I'm going to take my right index finger and thumb, and I'm going to grab those loops that are on the back side of my hand. So the one on the hook and the one on my hand. Once I've got those pinched rather securely, I'm going to let go with my thumb and then slide all of those loops very carefully off of my hand. Once I've done that, you can see I have my tail. Again, that's not attached to the ball of yarn. And then my working yarn. I'm going to move my tail out of my way, kind of just swing it around clockwise to the 12 o'clock position. And then I'm going to grab my working yarn and begin tensioning it by laying it over my left index finger and then grabbing the remaining yarn with my pinky and my ring finger. Then we need to be able to tension our yarn, so we're going to have to let go with our right hand. But before we do, we need to make sure we're pinching the loop that we've tied and our tail together. So if you look, I like to kind of pinch so that it sandwiches that working yarn. So I'm just going to pinch both that loop and that tail together here. And then when I've done that, I can let go with my right hand, and pulling my index finger up lets me tighten that loop on my hook. Then to lock our magic loop or magic ring in place, we can yarn over and draw through the loop on our hook. And that locks everything in place. You can let go with your left hand. You can even stop tensioning if you want. This loop isn't going to go anywhere now that we've locked it in place. One last thing that I like to do before I get started is I'll take the tail. You can see it's sort of threaded through the loop that we've made. I like to take this tail and pull it out so that I can go ahead and get started placing single crochet inside. Before you begin, we also need to make sure we are working both in the loop and over the tail of the magic ring as well. Alright, so we are ready to make our first single crochet stitch. Alright, so now that we've reviewed how to tie a magic ring, We're ready to start in on round 1. And if you look at the top left-hand corner here, you'll see the instructions for round 1. That's going to be where the instructions for the entire video are. They're going to track with us as we work. Alright, so for round 1, we need to put 6 SC in MR. And when I translate that, that's 6 single crochet stitches inside of our magic ring. So remember, when we're working in our magic ring, we're going to be working both inside the ring itself, but then also over the tail that we used to tie the ring. So to work our first single crochet stitch, we're going to take our hook and we're going to pass it both through that magic ring and underneath that tail that we used to tie our magic ring. Then we can yarn under by putting the yarn under our hook and draw our working yarn through the ring and underneath the tail. Then when we've done that, we can yarn over, meaning putting our working yarn over our hook, and then draw our working yarn through both the loop we just made and the only other loop on our hook. So both of those loops. And that forms our first single crochet stitch. We also need to mark this stitch, so grab your stitch marker, and we're going to slip it underneath both sides, the front and the back loop of this first stitch that we've made. Alright, so that's our first single crochet stitch. We need to make 5 more for a total of 6, and if you look at the end of our instructions up here, you'll see the number 6 in parentheses. That's how many stitches we need to have at the end of each round. So let's make our second single crochet stitch together. We'll take our hook just like before, go in through the ring and underneath that tail, yarn under, and pull our working yarn through the magic ring and into a nice tall loop on our hook. Then yarn over and draw through the 2 remaining loops on our hook, which forms our second single crochet stitch. So let's just keep adding single crochet stitches until we have all 6 for round 1. Alright, when you have all 6 of your stitches, and you can double check you have all 6 by counting the little V's here, and then not counting the loop on our hook. That's like a stitch in progress. When you've got all 6 of those stitches, we can do the magic part of our magic ring by taking that tail that we've been working over and pulling it tightly. We can close that round off, and that sets us up for round 2. So for round 2, we need to make 6 INC, or increases, and that will give us 12 stitches at the end of this round. So to do our increase, we're going to take our stitch marker out and keep track of where it was, because that's where we're going to be putting our hook in. So to work in our next single crochet stitch, we're going to take our hook and go through just like we did with our stitch marker, through both the front and back loop of this little V here. So just slip your hook from front to back directly underneath those. And then from here, it's just like how we made our single crochets in our magic ring. We'll yarn under and draw our working yarn through the fabric that we just pushed our hook through and draw up a nice tall loop. Then yarn over and draw through both loops left on our hook. Before we finish our increase though, let's mark that stitch that we just made. And then to wrap up our increase, we're going to put another single crochet stitch in the same stitch that we just finished our first single crochet. So if you look, you can see there's like a little hole. That's the stitch that we went through. We're going to go through that same stitch again. Yarn under and draw up a loop. Then yarn over and draw through both. And if you look, you can see we've got 2 V's coming out of the same hole or stitch from round 1. So to make our next increase, we're going to kind of rotate our work, and we're going to be working in that next V, both the front and back loop of it. So we'll take our hook, push underneath both legs of that V, yarn under and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through both. And then to finish our increase, we'll go through that same stitch, the one we just went through. and make another single crochet. And we'll keep increasing in each stitch all the way around until we have 12 stitches total, because we're doubling the 6 from round 1. And that'll wrap up round 2. Alright, that's the end of round 2 for me. Before we move on to round 3, let's tighten our magic ringtail one final time, and then we'll give it a trim. So I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm not going to cut it all the way off. I'm going to leave a little of it, and then discard the extra that I don't need. That'll keep it out of our way as we continue working around. Alright, so we're ready for round 3, where we've got a new kind of instruction to learn. If you look at the top left-hand corner, you'll see we've got some parentheses, and inside it says 1 SC, comma, 1 INC. So what that means is in the next stitch of the round, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch. So let's do that. We'll take our marker out. We'll put 1 single crochet stitch where that marker just was. And of course, remark because that's the first stitch of the round. And then the next part of our parentheses say 1 increase. So that means in the next stitch we're going to increase. So again, that's 2 stitches in the same place. And that's everything inside of those parentheses. So if you look directly outside, you'll see the multiplication sign and the number 6. That's telling us that we need to repeat the instructions inside of those parentheses in the order that they appear 6 times total to have 18 stitches at the end of our round. So we've just done 1 repetition here. We need to do that sequence 5 more times until we are all the way around round 3. So that's 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch of the round, and then an increase in the stitch right after. And there's our second repetition. We'll keep repeating that until we are all the way around round 3. Alright, I just finished my last increase here on round 3, and I'm ready to move on to round 4, where we've got another parentheses pattern to repeat. But this time we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. So we'll take our marker out, put 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round and mark it. Put 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch of the round, and then follow that second single crochet with an increase in the third stitch of the round. And that's everything inside the parentheses 1 time. We need to do that another 5 times for a total of 6 or 24 stitches at the end of our round. Alright, I did my last increase for round 4. I'm ready to move on to round 5, where we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round. Then an increase right after. And then we've got our next parentheses pattern to repeat. We're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. And then follow that with an increase. And if you look, we need to repeat that 5 times total, which will take us all the way around until we get to the last 2 stitches of our round. So let's repeat that sequence another 4 times for a total of 5. Alright, that was my last repetition of that parentheses pattern. I've got 2 stitches left. I'll put 1 single crochet in each. And that wraps up round 5. So we're ready for round 6, where we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches of the round. You've got your first 4 single crochet stitches placed. We need to increase in the next. And that is 1 repetition of that parentheses pattern. Let's do that 5 more times for a total of 6 or 36 stitches at the end of the round. Alright, that wraps up round 6 for me. So for rounds 7 through 12, all we need to do is put 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. So that's all 36 stitches of rounds 7 through 12, just putting 1 single crochet in each. So I will catch you back here whenever I get a little closer to wrapping up the end of round 12, and I'll see you then. Alright, I have just wrapped up round 12, and you can see my piece has gotten quite a bit bigger since we last spoke. So before we move on to round 13, let's talk a little bit about the front and back side of our work. So I'm going to take my hook out so I can show you a little easier. You don't need to. So as we've been working, your piece has probably started to kind of form this cup shape, which is what we want. We're going to be adding stuffing to the inside to make a 3-dimensional plush. But your piece may have accidentally worked itself inside out. So a dead giveaway that your wrong side is facing out is that your magic ringtail is on the outside of your work. And then if you look at your stitches, you may notice these little lines that run through them. We don't want this side to be facing out. We actually want the other side of our work, where the stitches look sort of like these little X shapes. We want this side to be facing to the outside. So if your work is accidentally on inside out, go ahead and flip it at this point, and then just continue to encourage it to be with this side on the outside as we continue working around. Alright, so next up for round 13, we need to place 1 single crochet stitch in the next 7 stitches of the round. Alright, there are my 7 single crochet stitches. And then we're going to place an increase in the next 5 stitches of the round. And that's going to kind of make the side of the body here. So that's 5 increases, 1 in the next 5 stitches. Alright, there are my 5 increases complete. Then we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 13 stitches of the round. Alright, there are those 13 single crochet stitches for me. Then we'll make another 5 increases, 1 in the next 5 stitches. Alright, there are my 5 increases, and then we're going to wrap up this round by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 6 stitches of the round. Alright, so that wraps up round 13. To move on in our pattern for rounds 14 through 22, we're just going to put one single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So that's one single crochet stitch in each of the 46 stitches from round 13. I will see you back here whenever I get a little closer to wrapping up the end of round 22. Alright, so I just wrapped up the end of round 22 and I went ahead and placed my safety eyes already, but let's go ahead and place them together. So they're going to go between rounds 13 and 14 of the bunny's body. So the increases that we added on round 13 form the sides of the body. So we want to make sure the face is centered in between those increases, because those are like the sides. So here I've got the eyes placed between rounds 13 and 14, centered in between those sides. To find where those rounds are, we can count down from that first magic ring that we made. So that's round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then the space between rounds 13 and 14, we're just going to push our eye directly in between those stitches. And they're going to be about 5 stitches apart, so if you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you've got them placed, you can go ahead and snap the little plastic backs on the inside of our work. Alright, so I have my safety eyes placed. I'm ready to go ahead and add Barbell Bun Bun's nose as well. So we're going to take a little bit of black embroidery floss. Alright, so I have my black embroidery floss and I've tied a knot here at the end. And we're going to embroider the nose and mouth on. So they're going to go between rounds 14 and 16. So remember, our eyes went between 13 and 14. So our nose is going to be just this round right below where the eyes are. So I'm going to start by sewing the left side of the nose. I'll take my embroidery needle and I'm just going to go up inside of Barbell Bun's body here and into round 14. So I'll sew up and make that first stitch. Then I'm going to come down into round 15 at sort of an angle. Then I'm going to make another diagonal stitch here on this side to make the other side of the nose. I'll go back down through the same stitch that I went through. Which forms the top of the nose, and then we're going to make a long straight stitch coming up here in basically the bottom of round 16, top of round 17. And we're going to go down through that same stitch both of the nose stitches went through, which forms our bunny's nose and mouth. Okay, so to finish off this embroidery, I'm going to flip the body inside out so I can get to the inside a little easier. Then I'm going to make a surface knot. So I loop my embroidery floss over the surface of the inside of the work. Then I'm going to sew just a little bit of the fabric of the work really close to the embroidery floss here. And then I'm going to sew up through that loop. And by holding it kind of close to the fabric of the work, I'm going to tie a knot. Then I can unthread my embroidery floss from my embroidery needle. And then I'm going to trim this tail short, but not all the way off. Since it's on the inside of our work, we can kind of let that knot hide out. We don't have to weave it in. You can discard anything you don't use. And that wraps up the face. So we are ready to continue on with round 23. So I'm going to go ahead and reinsert my hook. And for round 23, we're going to begin by making one single crochet stitch in the next 6 stitches of our round. And then we need to learn a new kind of stitch called a DEC, or a decrease. So to do a decrease, we're going to take 2 stitches from this round and single crochet them together so that there's only one stitch in place of two. We're decreasing the amount of stitches we have in this round. So to do that, we're going to take our hook. We'll go through that next stitch just like we normally would from front to back under both sides. Yarn under and draw through that stitch. Then we're going to do the exact same thing to the stitch right after. So go through, yarn under, and draw up a loop. And we have 3 loops on our hook now. To finish this off, we're going to yarn over and draw through all 3 of those loops. And if you look, it makes it so that there are 2 stitches that come together into one V, decreasing the amount that we have. So that's one repetition of our parentheses pattern. We're going to do that another 4 times. So that's 1 single crochet stitch in the next 6 stitches, and then decrease. Alright, so that was my 5th repetition of that first parentheses pattern. So to finish off the round, we need to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches. And then the last 2 stitches we're going to decrease, so we're going to single crochet them together. Alright, and that wraps up round 23. For round 24, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So that's 40 single crochet stitches until the end of this round. Alright, that's round 24 done for me. For round 25, we've got another parentheses repeat pattern. We'll start by making 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. Then we're going to follow that with a decrease. And that is 1 repetition of that parentheses pattern. We'll do that 7 more times for a total of 8 all the way around. Okay, that's round 25 done. Moving on to round 26, where we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. And then follow that with a decrease. And that is 1 repetition. Let's do that 7 more times for a total of 8 all the way around. Alright, that's round 26 done. For round 27, we're going to begin by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round. And then follow that with a decrease. And repeat that 7 more times for a total of 8 all the way around. So before we finish off the bottom of the bunny here with round 28, we need to stuff the body. So I'm going to go ahead and take my hook and pull that last loop up kind of long. And then we're going to add stuffing to the inside of the body here. Alright, now that I have the body stuffed, I'm ready to finish off that last round, round 28. We're going to put a decrease in every stitch all the way around. Alright, that was my last decrease, so I'm ready to fasten off, and I'll do that by slip stitching to the stitch my marker was in. So I'm going to take that marker out. And to slip stitch, I'm going to go through that stitch, yarn under and draw up a loop, then continue drawing that loop through the last loop on my hook. Then we're going to go ahead and cut a tail to use to sew the bottom of the bunny's body closed, so maybe 6 or 8 inches. Go ahead and cut your working yarn. Then we're going to pull that last loop on our hook until our working yarn pulls through it too. And then we can tighten our slip stitch by pulling that working yarn, which tightens our slip stitch down. Then we're going to take that tail we just cut and thread it through the eye of a yarn needle. And to close up the bottom of the body, we're going to sew through the front loop of each of these decrease stitches all the way around. So as we've been working through both the front and the back loop. So we stick our hook straight through and grab both of those loops. When we're sewing, we're only going to want to get the one closest to the front of our work. So sort of in between the two of those loops, we're going to grab just that front loop. We'll sew straight through. And we'll do that for each of the stitches. I rotate the body as I go, and I sew through the bottom of each of those stitches. Once you've sewn through all 8 of those decreases, you can pull your working yarn to cinch that bottom round closed. And then to continue fastening off, we need to weave this tail in. So we'll start by tying a surface knot, just like we did when we embroidered the face. We'll loop our working yarn over the surface of our work, catch just a little bit of the fabric of the body, and then sew up through that loop we've just made. And then holding that tail close to the body itself, we'll keep pulling our working yarn until it ties a knot. And then we're going to weave this tail in by sewing it down really close to that knot. I go usually through the center of the cinch that we made and into the body. And then we're just going to come out through any space between stitches, anywhere in the body, doesn't really matter where. Then we'll pull that tail through, pulling the knot to the inside and weaving the tail into the body of the bunny. Once we've done that, we can unthread our yarn needle. And by pulling that tail we just sewed tightly, we can snip close to the fabric of the bunny's body to weave the tail in. You can discard this tail, we don't need it anymore. And that is Barbell Bun Bun's body done. Let's move on to the next part of our pattern. Alright, so next up are the arms and legs. They're all made the same way. We need 4 of them total. So I'll walk you through how to make one, and then we can make 3 more before we attach. So we're going to start with that same color we're using for the body, this white, and begin by forming a magic ring. Alright, and once we've got that magic ring formed, we're ready to go ahead and start in on round 1, where we're going to add 5 single crochet stitches to the ring and over the tail. Alright, when you have all 5 of your stitches added to your magic ring, you can pull the tail to close the magic ring off. Then we're ready for round 2, where we're going to increase in each of the 5 stitches from round 1. So again, an increase is to put 2 single crochet stitches in the same place. Alright, that's round 2 done for me. Round 3 is our final round, and all we'll need to do is put 1 single crochet stitch in each of the 10 stitches from round 2. So that's just 1 stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 3 done for me. We're ready to fasten off, so we can take our stitch marker out, and we're going to slip stitch in the stitch that it was just in. Then we need to cut a medium length tail, as we'll be using it to sew the arms and legs onto the body. So reserve yourself 6 to 10 inches or so. Go ahead and cut that working yarn. Then we can pull that last stitch all the way through and tighten that slip stitch down. I'm also going to trim my magic ring tail. Not cut all the way off, just trim. And of course you can discard anything you're not going to use. And then when we attach these to the body, we're going to sew them on flat. So we can go ahead and take it so that the tail's over either in the right or left corner, and just cinch the arm and leg flat, like so. Alright, so we need to make 3 more of these for a total of 4 before we're ready to attach. So let's get those made. Alright, so I have all 4 of the arms and legs complete, so let's go ahead and get them attached. We'll start with 1 and thread the eye of that tail that we cut through our yarn needle. And then remember, we're going to be sewing them on flat, so go ahead and flatten your arm or leg and make sure that your tail is at the corner, because we're going to be sewing through both layers of this fabric as we attach it to the body. So I'm going to start by adding the arms on, and the arms are going to go even with the eyes here on the side of the body. And like I mentioned, we're going to be sewing through both layers of the fabric of the arm and through the body itself. So we'll start by going through the body close to where the tail is on our arm. So I'm going to go from the back to the front underneath the arm. And then I'm going to send the needle through the fabric of the arm, both sides. And then I'm going to repeat that. So I'll go into the fabric of the body, and then into the fabric of the arm, making sure to catch both layers of the arm there. And I'm just going to keep whip stitching this arm on. Alright, so once you have sewn through all the way across on the arm, we're going to make sure that the needle is coming out through the body and not through some of the fabric of the arm. And we're going to tie a surface knot to weave this tail in. So just like we did with the bottom of the body and with the nose, we'll loop our yarn over the surface of our work, catch just a little bit of the work as we sew up through that loop. Then, holding that loop close to the fabric of the body, we're going to pull our working yarn to tie a knot, and then weave that tail in by sewing it into the body and then just out through a random place. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and cut that working yarn tail, which gets it woven in. Then we're going to repeat on the other side with one of the other arms. Alright, so that's both of the arms attached. Let's go ahead and get started in on the legs. So we'll take another one of those little arm leg things that we've made already, flatten it, and get the tail threaded through the eye of our tapestry needle. And the legs are going to go on the bottom of the body, sort of like just here. It's about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish rows below the arms, and then kind of close to the front of the body, so not directly center. And we're going to attach them the same way by going through the fabric of the body and then through both layers of the leg. So we'll sew through the body first, and then grab some of the leg, and then just continue whip stitching just like we did with the arms. Alright, once you've sewn all the way across for the leg, we're going to finish off just like we did with the arms. We'll tie a surface knot. And then weave that tail into the body. And then trim. And that is one of the legs attached. Let's go ahead and repeat on the other side with the other leg. Alright, so that is the arms and the legs attached. Let's go ahead and move on to the next part of our pattern. Alright, so next up we're going to make the ears, and we need to make two, so I'll walk you through how to make the first, and then we'll make the second on our own. So we'll begin with that same color that we're using for the body, this white, and with another magic ring. And when we've got that magic ring formed, we're going to place 6 single crochet stitches inside for round 1. Alright, there's my 6 stitches for round 1. I'm going to pull my tail. I'm ready for round 2, where we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round. Then we'll increase in the next stitch. And then repeat that 2 more times. So 1 single crochet, increase, 1 single crochet, increase. And that wraps up round 2. Before we move on to round 3, let's pull that magic ring tail one final time and give it a trim so it stays out of our way as we continue working. Of course, you can discard anything you don't use. Alright, we're ready for round 3, where we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the 9 stitches we made for round 2. So that's 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 3 done. For round 4, we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round, another single crochet in the second stitch of the round, and then an increase. Then we're going to repeat that sequence 2 more times, so that's 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, increase, and one last time. Alright, that wraps up round 4. For round 5, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. And then increase. Then repeat that sequence 2 more times. Alright, that wraps up round 5. So for round 6 through 12, we're just going to put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So I'll see you back here whenever I have finished round 12. Alright, so I have just wrapped up the end of round 12, and I'm ready to move on to round 13, where we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. Then we're going to decrease in the next stitch and repeat that parentheses pattern 2 more times all the way around. Alright, that's round 13 done. Round 14, we're just going to put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 14 done. For round 15, we're going to put one single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. And then decrease. Then repeat that 2 more times. Alright, and that wraps up the crochet of this ear, so we're ready to fasten off. We'll take our stitch marker out and slip stitch to the stitch it was just in. And then we're ready to continue fastening off. We'll cut a tail for sewing, 6 to 8 inches or so. Then pull that last slip stitch all the way through. Then tighten that slip stitch into a knot. And then when we attach the ears, we're actually going to be attaching them flat, just like the arms and legs. And they're going to be folded as well. So we're going to fold the bottoms of the ears and then use this tail to sort of cinch the shape. But we'll do that when we have both of them formed. So let's go ahead and crochet one more ear. Alright, I have finished both of my ears and I'm ready to go ahead and get them attached. So I'll start with one, and I'll thread the tail that I cut through the eye of my tapestry needle. Let's start by giving the ear sort of that cinched shape. So we're going to take the ear and first fold it flat, just like we did with the arms and legs, and make sure that our tail is either on the left or the right corner. Then we're going to fold the ear in half at the bottom, kind of pinching that layer together, and encourage the rest of the ear to kind of fold into that shape. Then we're going to take our yarn that we've already threaded through our tapestry needle, and we're going to sew through all 4 of those layers of fabric here at the bottom to keep that cinch in place. I'm going to go back and forth a couple of times to make sure that cinched shape stays in place on the bottom of the ear. Then when we've sewn that cinch in place, we can sort of flatten the bottom of the ear from front to back. And we're going to be attaching the ear here at the bottom to the top of the bunny's head. So let's go ahead and grab our bunny. And the ears are going to attach at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and sew them on just like I did with the arms and the legs. We're going to go through all layers of the fabric and through the fabric of the head. Then I'll grab some of the fabric of the ear. I'm just going to continue sewing both into the fabric of the bunny's head and into the ear. I'm kind of working my way around. Alright, so that is the ear attached. We can go ahead and fasten off by tying another surface knot. And then weave that tail in. And snip. And that is one of the ears attached. Let's go ahead and repeat with the other ear on the other side. Alright, that is both ears attached, so let's move on in our pattern. Alright, so for the headband we're going to be starting with this fuchsia hot pink colored yarn, and we need to start by tying a slip knot and then chaining. So let's review how to form a slip knot. Alright, so let's review how to start with a slip knot and chains. So the way I like to tie my slip knots is I'm going to take my yarn, and I'm going to take the tail part and about 5 inches or so of that tail part, and I'm going to fold it behind the working yarn. I also like to pinch my fingers inside of that loop. So I'll put my index in middle, or I can wrap my pinky and my really whatever fingers you want to wrap inside. So once you've crossed that behind, and then you've made a little bit of a loop, we're going to fold that tail over and wedge it in between some of those fingers we have inside of the loop. Then when we've done that, our goal is to pull this strand through without pulling all of the tail through as well, because that's just going to tie a regular knot. We're going to use this loop we formed to sort of pinch the tail into a loop that we can tighten or loosen as we need. So to do that, I'm going to grab both the working yarn and that tail, and then I'm going to use my fingers to sort of pull that tail end through, and then by tightening both the working yarn and the tail and then pulling that loop, I form a slip knot. Now the reason I like to tie them this way is because they tighten whenever you pull the tail, but they don't tighten whenever you pull the working yarn. So that way whenever you start tensioning, it's not going to pull your loop really tightly closed. And then when we weave this tail in, it secures that first stitch. It also allows us to tighten that stitch too. So if we add a lot of stitches to this slip knot that we've tied, we have the ability to tighten it after the fact. So let's practice that one last time so we can just pull that slip knot out. And again, we're going to take about 5 inches or so of our tail, and we're going to wrap it behind our working yarn and bring it and wedge it in between our fingers that are inside that loop we've made. And then by pulling that working yarn and that loop through, can tie our slip knot. Once we've got it tied, then we're ready to go ahead and begin chaining. So we can grab our crochet hook, put it inside of that slip knot we've tied, and then by tugging the tail, we can tighten it down on our hook. Then we're ready to start chaining however many stitches we need to chain for our pattern. So to chain, it's a lot like a slip stitch. We're just going to take our working yarn and yarn over and pull it straight through and up. And the goal when we chain is to make these loops all the same size. So try not to make them too tight, but also try not to pull them up too long or you'll have a really loose chain. Alright, that's how we'll start when we tie a slip knot and chain. Alright, so now that we have our slip knot tied, we are ready to go ahead and start chaining. So again, remember to chain, we're going to take our hook, we're going to yarn under and draw our working yarn through our slip knot, which forms our first chain, and we never count the one here on our hook. So we need to keep chaining until we have 4 stitches total. So I've got all 4 of my stitches. Then we're going to turn, and starting in the second chain from our hook, we'll place 1 single crochet stitch. So remember, we don't count the one here on our hook. So 1, 2, we'll go through, yarn under and draw up a loop, then yarn over and draw through both. Then we'll add another single crochet stitch in the next chain. And then 1 last single crochet stitch in our slip knot. Then to finish this row, we're going to chain 1 to turn. And we're ready to work the next several rows, so rows 2 through 35. So to start our next row, we're going to turn our work by flipping it basically over. And then we're going to be working in the back loop only, placing single crochet stitches for the next several rows. So we're going to keep repeating that pattern of chaining 1 stitch and then working in the back loops until we are through our 35th row here. It works up pretty quick because there's really only 3 stitches. So I will see you back here whenever I've finished that last row and we are ready to fasten off. Alright, so I have just finished my 35th round or row here on the headband, and I'm ready to make my last row, which is just to add 3 single crochet stitches. So I'm going to chain 1, which counts as my first single crochet, and single crochet rather than back loop single crochet in that second, and then make my last single crochet stitch. Then we're ready to fasten off. I'm going to cut a medium length tail because we're going to use that to sew the band together. And then we'll pull our tail through that last single crochet stitch that we made. Then we'll pull that tail through that last single crochet stitch that we made and keep pulling till it's all the way through and tighten down. Then we're ready to go ahead and sew the ends of the band together, so we'll just join them. Careful not to twist while you do that. We'll thread that tail that we just cut through the eye of our tapestry needle. And we'll sew those ends together by sewing down through the opposite side, so where we started the band. And then going back through the end of the band. We'll just keep going back and forth until we've got all 3 of those stitches from either side attached. So there, I've got the band sewed together. I'm going to go ahead and tie a surface knot. And then I'll weave in that tail by sewing it through just a little bit of the fabric of the band here. I'm just slipping my tapestry needle underneath some of those stitches. I'm going to repeat with the slip knot tail as well. I'll weave that in by putting it through the eye of my tapestry needle, and then just sewing it through some of the fabric of the headband. Once you've woven those in, we can snip the tails. And that's the headband done. We can go ahead and add it to our bunny by slipping it over the ears. And it just slots here over the top of her head. Alright, so we have one more thing to do, which is to add the rosy cheeks and the pink detail here on the ears. So to do that, we're going to grab either some blush or some acrylic paint and apply it. Alright, so I'm going to add the rosy cheeks first. I'll just dab a little here alongside, just below the eyes. And then I'm going to add the pink detail on the inside of the ear. And that wraps up Barbell Bun Bun's tutorial.